So let's bring on Ray Green. I'm very excited by him. He's our final guest today.
Yay!
Ray, there he is. Hi.
Hey, Ray.
I'm great. So, are you still in Mexico? You still at home?
I am.
Okay.
I'm really dressed up. I'm not wearing a tank top, I feel dressed up for Mexico right now.
Do you know what's funny? I honestly thought, I was like, you know what? I'm not feeling dressing up today, and so I almost just wore what I normally wear here in South Florida, like my sundress, and just rolled with it. I was like, nah, not for the entrepreneurship episode. That's a little too chill. But I was right there with you. I was so close.
6.5 out of 7 days, I'm in tank top and flip flops, but here we are. So
I literally was talking to Donnie yesterday on a Zoom in my pajamas. Like I have like PJ bottoms and a tank top. Like this is it. This is my business meeting attire. This is all I've got. I'm not wearing anything fancy today. So
it's pretty incredible what they did with in Dallas and selling that out.
It's amazing what he's done, man. And the content was superb. The dude's a beast, man. And he's so fun to talk to, as you saw. He's really a trip. But yeah, it's a really interesting, sales and all that. And that's also your expertise as well. But people think that scaling up is just selling more and hiring more people, but there's actually way more to it than that, right? Look at Justin. He's like, yeah, I got lots of stuff to say about this. Man. So what does scaling up a business mean to you, Ray?
That's a really good question. When I think of scale, I think of systems and processes, and it doesn't have to be like you guys were talking about. It doesn't have to be fully automated. It doesn't have to be all CRM integrated, but it has to be. From a process standpoint, there has to be a consistent way that things are done, and it could be repeated like every single time. And like I've always, I've talked to a lot of companies, and they say, no, we have a sales process. And you're like, okay, show it to me. Like, let me see it. And they're like, well, he does it this way at the same time. And I'm like, that's if you have 5, 6, 10 sales reps and you think it's being done consistently, like stuff's going to fall through the cracks. So I think repeatability is a big part of it, and just having the systems in place, whether it's through tech or through people that it can get executed in a consistent way, would be
yes.
How I look at it.
And I've had a lot of companies, and I want to get your take on this too, Justin. I've had a lot of companies that I've worked with. So I work with small businesses, right, and entrepreneurs. That's what I focus on. That's what I love. And I've had a lot of them say, well, when should I develop policies and procedures? And when should I develop like my employee handbook? And my response to that is, why isn't that already done? Right. That should have been done before almost anything else happens. So real quick, Justin, what's your take on that? And then I want to get Ray's thoughts as well.
So Ray touched on something interesting, the difference between scale and growth. I talk about this a lot with entrepreneurs and what that means. So there's actually a real definition behind it in the business community. If you go, you can Google it. You guys can Google it, but I'll give you the rundown of it. So the first one is growth. Growth is that my revenue and my cost are somewhat the same. Mm-hmm. I'll do this so it's on screen. And then you're ratcheting up over time. So your revenue should outgrow your cost, but they're both increasing somewhat the same. Scale is a little bit different, where I'm keeping my costs at a very, very low and watching my revenue go. And the perfect example of that is like an app on an app store, right? You build it once, you sell to one person or 10 people or 100 people. Your cost for building that app, it's already done. It stays the same.
Right.
And I think Ray touched on that. If you put some processes in place where something's repeatable, that means your cost for that one thing stays the same. And you want to keep your cost as low as possible. Now, it's not always possible to keep your costs at the same level. What you want to do is watch your revenue go up and your costs kind of slowly trail behind it. So there's this 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3. That idea.
The ratio.
You're right. So I think it's really important that when you're looking at scaling businesses, you have to understand, can your business scale? At what rate does it scale? So like I said, software apps, they scale extremely fast. So that hockey stick that everybody wants to see. But if you're doing something like say a coffee shop or let's do food truck business. That's always fun, right? I can go from one food truck to the next food truck, right? So there's going to be some cost there to do that and people, but over time, you're going to see that my revenue is outgrowing the cost because the food truck amortizes. You know, the value, you pay it off, pay both your food trucks off, then get a third food truck. And so you can start seeing that sort of slow down, your costs slow down as your revenue increases because you're doing triple the business.
Right. I hope, hopefully. So I think, so Ray, when you're talking about, you know, the processes and all that, how does that tie into, you know, the plan and the scalability? How do you take the processes and making sure everything is being done in a regulatory manner and tie that in to the growth plan?
I mean, it depends on the business. Like if you're a SaaS company, so much of it's going to be done through tech. Like you're going to be able to measure every single one of these points along the way, and you know, adjust it, modify it, just like tinker it like a machine. If it's done through people, then you have to have systems in place to monitor the process, right? So take like a call center. If you can have a script, you can have the systems in place, you can have, you know, but to make sure that it's working, there still has to be somebody kind of monitoring, right? So that in and of itself is like another system to make sure that it's being done. But it's when it's done, I think properly, like it kind of regulates itself. But I think the processes need processes, which. But if you developing them, putting them on a whiteboard, and then never coming back to them, never monitoring them, never managing to them, never referencing them, never talking about them in team meetings, never having the CEO talk about, like then they just disappear. So like there has to be some attention that you're consistently giving, whether it's through people or through tech.
100%. I think, and it's that evolution, right? We were talking about how entrepreneurs always want to grow. They always want to change. They're always reevaluating. That's kind of a character trait. And you have to reevaluate. You can't just say, this is how we do it. We're done. Doesn't work. It never will. You will fail if you do that. If you stay stagnant as a business, you will fail. Every business and even some businesses that appear on the outside to stay the same, like, you know, I've had people say, oh, well, Amazon stays the same. No, they don't. They change all the time. People say Google's the same. It's still just a search engine. They innovate constantly. Right. They are absolutely amazing with innovation and with changing, and even their internal policies. I've talked to people that work there and they're like, oh yeah, we're constantly changing methods and all that to improve. And they listen to the team and listen to your team, the people who are on the ground doing the job every day. If they tell you something's busted, it's busted. Yep. Okay. Don't get stubborn and go, well, I made it, so it's perfect.
Right. Sales teams can be the best R&D that you have. Like they're on the front line.
Yes.
They hear the no's, they hear why they're being told no. And when they bring that information back like that, it's an R&D channel. The other thing I was going to say on the scale is I do think you can get over focused in the early stages. You can get too focused on scale. So if you're, the way I look at it, like if I'm starting a business that, like Donnie was saying, like relies on me, if I am the product, that's never going to scale. Right. But if it's not necessarily me, but if it's part of a framework that I have or something that I teach, I don't necessarily have to get 100% scalability right out of the gates. The question that I would be asking, whether it's as an investor or anything, like I'd be asking, can it scale? Like in the very, very early stages, because you can spend so much time trying to get the system perfect and before you're even solving for the problem that you have, like solve the problem that you have, go get some customers and then create the problem and then go, okay, let's figure it out. As long as you know you can scale it when you need to, I think that's the most important.
Right. And you can't scale too fast. So you do kind of have to go, okay, so this is going good at this size. Now let's try this size or let's try this new product or whatever. And that's the other thing. I've seen a lot of people try to put too many products out there too quickly. If it's, like a retail type situation or something like that, or even in a SaaS space, I've seen that. I've seen too many products launched and it's just pandemonium and nothing is being perfected. So you have to start here, get that right, and then go to the next step. It's just like, and as an athlete, when you're learning different things, you got to learn how to run properly, right? Then you got to learn how to, if it's soccer, kick a ball. Then you got to, it slowly develops and you learn each skill. And once you perfected something, then you move on.
Right.
It's interesting. We talk about beachhead markets. So if you have a product, let's we'll take Audrey. Since she was on the show and she has a stroller company. Really what we were working with her is what's her beachhead market. It's very, very small, very specific, so she can understand how to attract a customer, how to make sure that she has things in place where she can get revenue from that customer. And in her case, it was women that had triplets, multiples,
right, multiples,
or close range. I get
close range children.
Right. Not going out to well, we could build a stroller that's for one child also, or we could also build this one that's a jogger, and we could do all this, right? That's too many products coming out the gate. Stick very, the more specific you are starting, the better you're going to be understanding your business and what you can do to get to the next level.
Right. And even with it's not a product.
And if it's not a product, even if it's a service, but just don't offer everything under the sun. One of John's favorite sayings, and he was on the show, is you can't boil the ocean.
Right.
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 So don't go after everything at once. Go after something very specific. And I think at that point, then you can put some processes in place that make sense for proper growth and proper scale.
I agree.
Justin, adding on to that, I'd say almost every business that I've had the opportunity to work with or in has more good ideas than they have capability to execute them. And so a really important piece is, and you don't want to lose those ideas sometimes. So what we did, we were for a company we were running, we essentially said, it's like a digital suggestion box. And we don't want to lose those ideas. We want to come back to them. So when you have them, put them in the idea, but then you got to go back to the job that we're doing right now.
Right.
So that we can, and then have something, whether it's on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, where you're reviewing all those ideas and then prioritizing them and figuring out, okay, what bandwidth do we actually have to execute any of this stuff?
Right.
You can get oil the ocean. I love that term. I mean, you can overwhelm yourself by what was the term? No, I'm kidding. You can with all the ideas and not know, and now you don't know, you're confused on what to pursue, and your execution tends to, the quality aspect of it tends to decline when you're trying to do too many things at once.
100%. And real quick, I do want to ask you, because we had this question come up earlier from a guest, from a viewer, and wanted to know, because we're talking about, scaling and all of that. And as you scale, sometimes you move from one type of business to another. So you might go from a solopreneur or, and to a partnership or to a corporation or to an LLC. So kind of explain to our audience, if you could, why you would choose to advance to a corporation or an LLC over staying a solopreneur or, an individual business owner.
Is that me or Justin?
We'll start with you.
Okay. Like the most common and I think the most difficult transition is going from a solopreneur into an LLC or a corporation, and it's because somebody usually has, it's like the E-Myth basic foundation. Like you start doing this thing, you do it really well, the dog catches the car, you get a bunch of clients, and then you realize oh shit, I don't have enough time to actually do all the work and or to do it well. And these clients are going to be the next, if they're going to refer me to the next one. So now I have, and the solopreneurs that I've worked with before, it's been time. They start off thinking, I'd love to own my own business, not have a manager hovering over me anymore. So they go out, they do the job, they get the clients, and then they get overwhelmed almost inevitably because they get exactly what they want. And the transition into an LLC or a corporation is what allows you to scale, I guess, or allows you to grow and get quality of life back, I think, is a big part of it.
Right. 100%. And so, Justin, what do you see as the biggest difference between the corp and the LLC?
So it's interesting. When we mentor, we tell them, don't worry about these corporate legalities. Sort of the legal entity is what really matters here, right? So if you're a sole proprietorship, or you think you want to build an LLC or move into the C Corp, the thing that there should be a difference in denoted. I'll learn to speak this language soon. I'm still learning. I'm young. I don't know these things. But I think what should be noted here is that if you're going into business with several co-founders, you're going to have to learn how to divide up that equity, and you're going to have to learn what that means, and that's stock. So when we talk about equity, it's shares of the company, stock shares of the company, and you can't do that with a sole proprietorship, and it's extremely difficult in a LLC, which is a partnership, which is equally divided, and you all share in the tax liability. There's the big one. And then if you go into a C corp, you can then divide up shares properly. And this depends on what type of business you're building. If you're going in where there's going to be investment, where you're going to get what we call institutional investment, means somebody, one of those big investment companies that are coming in and they're going to say, yeah, we're going to dump money into your company. They're going to want a C corp no matter what.
Right.
So they're going to want the shares divvied up properly, a proper board attached to it. So, but that's a larger thing. But what we tell people is, don't worry about that legal entity just yet. Get customers. And if you do get customers, then go small. Go whatever the cheapest route is. Right. Pick the cheapest route. Some people go straight to C corp because they have partners. If they have several co-founders, we tell them go straight to a C corp. It's not that expensive.
No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad to do C corp.
And in California, it's different.
Well, it's because California's never mind. Whole other subject. If anybody's ever done business in California, you know why we're rolling our eyes right now.
Man, it is a fun place to do business.
Super great. I will say too, so one thing that's really interesting that I see a lot in talking about the scalability and doing things that are cost effective, you hit the next subject on the head that I want to bring up with you guys, because this is a pet peeve of mine. I see so many entrepreneurs spend money on utterly ridiculous things. Just utterly ridiculous. I am like, why is this it? So as a recruiter, one thing I see a lot is the ridiculous CRM or ATS, right? Which is, we're going to spend this thousands upon thousands of dollars on this very simple piece of technology, which, by the way, you could go to Zoho or one of those other ones and get you a workable, there you go, get you a workable CRM or ATS for like $50 a month or something, and depending on how many users and all that, but far more affordable. You don't need these big extravagant things. Office space. This one always cracks me up. I have seen companies go bankrupt because they are just bound and determined to have like a downtown office or this huge square footage or all this kind of nonsense. And I'm just going, why? Right. So guys, shop around is my point. Do not do something just because it feels fancy and it makes you feel super important, because ultimately that's what those things boil down to. Why do you need an office in a swanky building in downtown? Because it makes you feel special. It's not important to your business. What are your thoughts on that, Ray?
People get tired of hearing me say it, like, show me that problem. Like, show me that problem and solve the problem that you have. Like when they say, what are we going to do when we have 12,000 customers and we don't show me that problem? Like, and we can solve it. I promise you, there's somebody, when you have 12,000 customers, there's somebody that knows exactly how to solve that problem, and you can bring them in and they will fix it for you. But if you get stuck solving for all the big problems that you're going to have in the future, like you have a finite amount of resources, whether it's cash, time, however you want to look at it. And if you're solving problems that you don't actually have, that means the problems that you do have right now probably aren't getting solved. So list out what you're solving and address it as it comes up. And don't worry about it. There's people that will solve that exact problem down the road, and you'll hopefully have the money to have them do it.
100%. I think that's genius. And thank you so much for coming on today, Ray. We really appreciate it. You were wonderful.
Thanks, Ray.
I had an absolute blast. Guys, connect with Ray. We've dropped his LinkedIn in the comments. Definitely connect with him. A very, very fascinating person. So you should and follow his content. He posts really good content on LinkedIn. I really like his stuff. So check him out.